Baptist Church, if you view in on YouTube live stream, we welcome you also. We have a good lesson today. It comes from the book of Judges out of the Old Testament. And yes, it is. Can you hear me now? Okay. Well, maybe this one's not working then. Anyway, like I said, it comes from the Old Testament. I don't understand how that some denominations feel that there's no need of having lessons or teaching or preaching out of the Old Testament, because the Old Testament is as far as I'm concerned, if I had the power to do it, it would be the only history book that would be taught in schools, because it is the true history, and it teaches lessons of what happened to the people back then, and how it can, if we fall into the same category they were, then we'll face the same judgment as they did. Now, the children of Israel, we know that this was a time, the judges came right after the death of Joshua, that God sent the judges, and the judges, period of the judges from 1380 BC until 1050, that goes from between death of Joshua and the kingship of King Saul. When they were king, number one, they were military heroes or deliverers, and the people back then, they were wandering. They were just wandering. They had already conquered the land. The land was theirs, but still they were wandering. They had no purpose or anything, but they had the ark. So that is what they are. Really, they believed that the ark was everything to them, but without the worship of God. The time of Judges brings a downward spiral to the Jewish people, and it had 5 segments on it. The first one, if you just draw a little line and make a spiral like that, you can go down and add in these 5. The first one, they would sin against God. All right, they would deny Him. They would follow false idols and all that. They would sin against God. Then God would sell them over to the nations for servitude. He'd put them, in other words, right back in bondage like they were in Egypt. The next phase is supplication. They would understand their situation and how they got there, and they would pray to God, and they would turn to God, and then would come. Number 4 would be salvation. But now the last one to me is more dangerous than what, because it is entitled silence. Silence. So you see, the people had sinned, they had servitude, supplication, and salvation. Now, after salvation, they got everything was fine with them. So then what would they do? It was a never-ending cycle, folks. They would just go right back into, and they would turn away from God, fall into the same category of going, and then here it would come all over again, and He would send a deliverer or a king or a deliverer. But He would, throughout all of this, they never seemed to learn. That is the thing about it. But you can look at that downward spiral, and you can almost apply it today. Well, you can apply it today to the church. That's how members in the church, they come into the church, they're all on fire. They're just everything. Every time the doors are open, they're there, and then all of a sudden, and I'm using myself as an example, folks, not anybody else. I'm using myself. I was on fire for God. I was just, every time the church doors open, then all of a sudden, every once in a while, something happened. It was something, and I had to miss church. Well, it troubled me. Well, then again, I had to miss church again. And it didn't trouble me as much. And you see where I'm going. After a while, it got to where it didn't bother me at all. So from going every time the church door was open, I just pick and choose the days I was going. Totally went back to the way of the world. There's no ifs and buts about it. If you do that, that's what you're going to do. So there were two the first judge of Israel was Othniel, and he was a nephew of Caleb. And he reigned, and there were 40 years of peace because he delivered the people from their hand. The next one was Eglon, which was the one God placed there, which was left-handed. And Ehud, not Eglon. Ehud was he was the left-handed one, and I read, and I'd like to share with it, that he paid tribute to Eglon, and he carried a bunch of stuff to him, but in a sense, he had made a dagger, a double-edged dagger, and him being left-handed, he strapped it to his right thigh under his clothes. So he was able to pass through, because I guess when they checked them, they always checked for the left side, because a right-handed man would always grab there so they didn't check. Anyway, he told Eglon that he wanted to have a special word from God, and when he went into his tent, then he drove the dagger in him and assassinated, killed him, was able to escape. So he delivered, and after that, they had 80 years of peace. So 80 years of peace is that silence. You can figure that into the silence and that's what they're turning away with. This morning's lesson comes from, we'll study about a man named Barak. I won't call him Barak because I remember another guy named Barak. So we'll call him Barak, okay? The point of the lesson is your service to God is valuable no matter who gets the credit. Question 1 said, what is an invention you can't imagine living without? What? I'm going to ask the question. I know everybody's got one. I've got one too. What is an invention that you think you can't live? And don't say the cell phone, please. Whatever you do.
Air conditioning.
Air conditioning. That's a good one. Huh? Automobile.
Running water.
Yeah, running water. Okay.
Indoor plumbing.
Yeah. It's a modern convenience that sometimes we take for granted that's so important to us. You know what mine is? A watch.
What?
A watch. For 40 years, when 40 years on the railroad, I was married to a watch. I had to be here at a certain time. I had to be in the clear at a certain time. I had to do this a certain time. And I become a creature of habit. And to this day, I wear a watch, and it troubles me to be late. I do not want to be late for anything. I'd rather be 30 minutes ahead of time than to be late. And so, especially to church, I despise being late for church. I hate to walking in the last minute. I just cannot do it. All right. Taking in consideration the point of the lesson, your service to God is valuable no matter who gets the credit. And who should we give credit for our success? God. God gets all the credit. God gets the credit for everything. We can do nothing without Him. We can do nothing without Him. All right, Judges 4:4-8 said, and Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of, now y'all help me pronounce these words, Lapidoth, she judged Israel at the time, and she dwelled under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in Mount Ephraim. And the children of Israel came up to her for judgment. And she sent and called Barak, the son of Abinoam, out of Kadesh Naphtali, and said unto him, hath not the Lord God of Israel commanded, saying, go and draw toward Mount Tabor, and take with thee 10,000 men of the children of Naphtali, and of the children of Zebulun. And I will draw unto thee to the river of Kishon Sisera, the captain of Jabin's army, and with his chariots and his multitude, and I will deliver him into thine hand. And Barak said unto her, if thou wilt go with me, then will I will go, but if thou wilt not go with me, then I will not go. Kind of odd that he gave her all the men and then was asking a woman, wasn't that did that question his courage or what? But there was a lot of things that bear into it because he knew who she was, and he knew how close she was to God because she was the judge. On this first paragraph, Joshua led them into the promised land where they conquered the land and enjoyed peace. After Joshua's generation died, here comes the time of silence. The next generation sinned and turned away from following God. So God punished Israel, allowing their enemies to defeat them and steal their possession. But then God would have mercy and raise up a judge who would rescue the people from their enemies, restore their relationship with Him, and recover their possessions, resulting in peace to the land. After a while, the people repeated the cycle that I just explained a while ago. Enjoy success, fall into sin, experience suffering. God raises up a leader. Now, skip it down in the next paragraph. We're talking about Ehud. After 80 years of peace under Ehud, the Israelites sinned, and for 20 years they suffered under King Jabin and his general Sisera, who seemed unstoppable with his large force of 900 iron chariots. In desperation, the Israelites cried out to God. Are we any different than the Israelites? We push things, we try to fix things ourselves, we try to take care of things ourselves until when? Until we realize it is hopeless, and then what do? We call out to God. And the good thing about it is God hears us when we come out to Him in an earnest and honest prayer that we are desperately seeking Him and seeking His help. When we face opposition and the insurmountable obstacles, God always, top of the page, God always has a plan of escape. Individuals to carry out the plan and the authority to enforce it. Now they're speaking about Deborah here, which Deborah, the word Deborah is translated honeybee, as is fixing to come, but also Barak's, his name is translated to lightning. So Deborah had to wear many hats inside and outside of her home. As a wife of Lapidoth, she served and cared for her family. As a prophetess, she spoke for God to the people. As a judge, she settled disputes. Her name means honeybee, like a honeybee. Deborah was busy with her job and called for line. And I'll tell you what, Miss Nelson named Deborah. They gave her right name to the right person, and she fits all. She checks all the boxes. So we know a little about Barak. His father was Abinom, and he was from the tribe of Naphtali. God was assembling His team to tackle a problem at hand, and they were so different. Yet God used them as a team to bring deliverance to Israel. God often uses people of diverse backgrounds with various skills and opportunities for victory when they come together and work together. Deborah was a woman, Barak was a man. God used Deborah for her wisdom. God used Barak as a warrior. The people came to Deborah so they could settle their disputes. Barak went to the people to gather an army for their deliverance. Deborah was ready, and Barak was reluctant, Barak was reluctant of the uncertainty of his ability, so he questioned it. Now you have to let's look at the scale of the battle and what was involved here. The Hittites are the one who developed the iron chariot, and this will all make sense here in a minute to you when it's talked about when the battle was about to take place. The iron chariots, most chariots, it takes 2 horses to pull them. But now an iron chariot requires 4 because of its weight and the size of it. Now, Barak's army was just 10,000 men, and the Bible dictionary, when I looked it up, he said even the people were ill-suited to go to battle without the spears and the swords and stuff, but he wanted 10,000 people, and that's what he got. Said, how did God help Barak overcome his reluctance? God used Deborah to affirm the call by asking Barak, hath not the Lord, God of Israel, commanded? Although God had already been communicating with Barak, Deborah helped clarify Barak's role in gathering the army together and assuring him of God's involvement in victory. God promised to hand Sisera over to Barak. Despite the encouragement and moral support, Barak still felt the need for support of presence and requested that Deborah accompany him. All right, question number 2. When has someone else helped you follow God's leading? Well, I know that I had encouragement and help from a lot of people by accepting roles to serve in the church. A leader of that would be Gilder Kelly. He was always encouraged me and was always positive about everything and telling me I could do it, even though at the start I did fail. I fell on my face a bunch, but I never gave up because I always didn't want to let Gilder down. And what he said. Also, Brother David has helped me a lot since his arrival here at this church. Because I remember telling Diane that when Brother David hit the ground here as the pastor of this church, even when he was interim, he was visiting people, going out and visiting sick and shut in. That stood out. That jumped out to me. That jumped out to me real good. And then, of course, as he was called as pastor, his work has continued. And I made a statement, Diane, if he's going to work that hard, I'm going to help him. And the whole church has helped him. And this is the reason our church is in the position it's in. It's because people are willing to do and are willing to work. All right, Judges 4:12 through 16. And they sold Sisera that Barak, I'll keep on a minute, but a son of Abinadab was gone up to Mount Tabor. And Sisera gathered together all his chariots, even 900 chariots of iron, and all the people that were with him, from Harosheth of the Gentiles unto the river Kishon. And Deborah said unto Barak, Up, for this is the day in which the Lord hath went down from Mount Tabor, and 10,000 men after him. And the Lord discomfited Sisera and all his chariots and all his host with the edge of the sword before Barak, so that Sisera lighted off of his chariot and fled away on his feet. But Barak pursued after the chariots and after the host unto Harosheth of the Gentiles, and all of the host of Sisera fell upon the edge of the sword, and there was not a man left. Not a man left. They slew them all. Which brings us back to another point I want to bring out that I'll come to this. When the land was being given out to the children of Israel, to the 12 tribes, each one to get his portion of it, except, 11. The Levites didn't receive any land because they were the priests. But there were three tribes that chose to stay east of the Jordan. East of the Jordan. And that would be Reuben, Gad, and half of the tribe of Manasseh. They chose to stay over there. And that was where the Canaanites were. And they sinned against God because God told them to utterly drive them and destroy the people, get rid of them, their false idols, their false worship, get rid of it. But they chose not to do that. Now, our lesson today is from that Jabin's army. He was a Canaanite. So that's how that followed up. And by not obeying God, look at the position they put themselves in. Same with us there. Without listening to God, and we listen to our own self, then what happens? We put ourselves in bad situations. All right, bottom of the page, last sentence on that, the left side said, Barak aimed to form a team and desired to have the Lord's presence at the forefront with him, Deborah, as God's representative, was essential and appreciated. Barak's team consisted of warriors from the tribe of Naphtali and the neighboring tribe of Zebulun. Now here, listen to this. Additional tribes joined in the cause and dispatched fighters from Ephraim, Benjamin, and Issachar after the victory. However, the tribes of Reuben, Dan, Asher, and Gilead refused to aid. Barak did well on those who declined to assist him. Instead, he focused on those who were with him and took comfort in knowing that God was with him even when the odds were against him. Barak was submissive to the will of God. He agreed to go even when he knew that someone else would get the credit for the victory. What a display of humility and sacrifice. Barak was obedient to God's strategy for carrying out this monumental task. Go into detail about, or we will go into detail about the battle here, and I'll explain about the chariots. All right, last sentence on the bottom left-hand column said, Barak listened to the details of God's plan. Barak was strong and determined to battle in this battle against Sisera. When someone warned Sisera of Israel's military buildup, Sisera came in with his entire army. So now, this is crazy. And said, they're skipping down a little bit in that paragraph, said, because Deborah had prophesied that God would lure Sisera to that place, according to Deborah's song, Israel didn't even have shields or spears to fight a proper war. Upon receiving the command to go without delay, Barak fearlessly led his army into battle, presumably on foot, charging on. Barak achieved success because God intervened by throwing Sisera's army into a state of confusion and panic and discomfort. God prevented them from gaining victory, and God had shaken their confidence. God rained on Sisera's plans literally for chariots to be successful. The weather must be dry. Otherwise, the wheels get stuck in the mud. God had turned the weather against Sisera. Despite the Canaanites worshiping Baal, the God of storms, according to Judges 5:4, the heavens dropped the clouds and also dropped water. The rain caused the flooding, the river overflowed, making the chariots useless in mud. Sisera had to leave his chariots and run on foot, and Barak relentlessly pursued Sisera's army until he had destroyed every single one of them. All right. These chariots were huge. Like I said, it took 4 horses, 900 of them. Can you imagine 900? I don't care whether they were stacked in rows of 10s, 15s, or whatever, but if just lie row after row. And you get them in a confined space, and the topography of this battle scene, because Barak was on high ground and he was going down, and God had caused Sisera to go down into this place to where all of this rain and the flooding would affect them, and I could just imagine the chaos it was when all the water came down and the water started and the horses got excited, and then you're running 4 abreast with horses like this, and they all went to doing all kind of crazy things, and you couldn't control them. So it was just total chaos. So this cat jumped off and started trying to get away. Now, let's read Judges 5:1-5. And then sang Deborah and Barak, the son of Abinoam, on that day, saying, Praise ye the Lord for the avenging of Israel, when the people willingly offered themselves. Hear, O ye kings, give ear, O ye princes. I, even I, will sing unto the Lord.